Corbin Burnes went down. If you look at all the stuff and you read the lips, my elbow, it exploded, or it's dead, or whatever he said on that when he said to the trainer, my elbow. How screwed are the Diamondbacks, and what do they do now? Because if he's out for a long time, this was their big addition. Gallen's a free agent. Fought his last start, didn't get an out, and gave up like 10 runs. Eduardo Rodriguez hasn't been good. They already got rid of Monty because, he went down again. What do the Diamondbacks do?
Sell, Mortimer, sell, right? Isn't that what they said at Trading Places?
It's a great movie, by the way.
You become the headliner at the trade deadline with the Orioles. That's exactly what the Diamondbacks do. Look, they're 28-31, and they don't have the pitching to come back, right? When you look at their offense, they're fourth in baseball of the 30 teams in runs scored, in home runs, and OPS. They don't pitch. Corbin Burnes is their best pitcher with an ERA under 3. If Corbin Burnes needs Tommy John or is out for the year and needs some kind of surgery, they're screwed. Their season's over. You got Eduardo Rodriguez still on the injured list with a shoulder. So what do? You've got Zac Gallen and Merrill Kelly. Both are going to be free agents. You got to hope Gallen starts to pitch better, by the way, because he hasn't pitched well. He better pitch better. But you shop those 2 starters. There's not a lot of starters that are going to be available at this deadline. You take Josh Naylor, the first baseman, who's a free agent at the end of the year. You call Seattle. You see if Seattle wants a first baseman that can hit and drive in runs. You ask teams needing a reliever. Have you watched Shelby Miller lately to see what he's doing for me? So that's what you do if you're the Diamondbacks. I don't see them coming back right now because they don't have the pitching. And if you lose Burnes, they really don't have the pitching. So that's kind of how I view it. And by the way, that team is like the Orioles. If those 2 teams sell at the deadline like they should, both of those teams can quickly fix it in the offseason and be right back in it next year in a really good spot. But this could be a great opportunity for both of those franchises to do a quick reboot come July.
So let's stay right there. You gave us those 2 teams. Give us who else with the trade deadline coming up, 59 days away. Who are the sellers and who are the players that are going to be on those blocks?
Yeah, great question, Cam. So look, a lot of these are obvious. I'll go quick with them. The Rockies, the White Sox, the Pirates, the Athletics, the Marlins, the Angels, all 6 of those teams will be selling. That's pretty obvious. I'm going to throw the Washington Nationals in that as well. That's 7. Then you add the Diamondbacks and the Orioles, you're at 9. There'll be more, but that's a really good start. Now, the problem is a lot of these teams don't have a lot to trade, right? You look at the Rockies, Ryan McMahon, he's got some value, perhaps. Team's looking for an upgrade at third base. They've got Seth Halverson out of the bullpen. Maybe someone will think they can do something with Kyle Freeland. I don't know. The White Sox have Lewis Robert, but not much besides that. Maybe an Adrian Hauser, maybe a Steven Wilson. The Pirates, they don't have much. Dennis Santana probably. Andrew Haney or Adam Frazier, kind of extra pieces. Athletics could move Jeffrey Springs, who they acquired in the offseason. He's 32 years old. They might be able to do a nice trade there. Marlins don't have much because Alcantara has ruined his trade value because he's not Alcantara yet. And so I think they got to hold him until his value comes back, which will be either in the offseason or next year's trade deadline. So from them, you probably got Jesus Sanchez, Cal Quantrill, and Anthony Bender. The Angels, probably Taylor Ward, Kenley Jansen, Tyler Anderson, probably names that are out there. The Nationals, probably Kyle Finnegan, Jacob Young, probably in the mix there. But look, the headliner of this trade deadline, think of the Orioles. Ryan O'Hearn, he'll be one of the best bats moved. Ryan Mountcastle with a power. Cedric Mullins, elite defensive center fielder with speeds, got 10 homers. Then you've got Zach Eflin, a free agent. You got Charlie Morton, who's pitching better. You got Sagano's pitching better. I mean, I just named 6 guys that they can trade. So they're like the Diamondbacks, where they could clean up at this trade deadline. And by the way, if Boston doesn't start playing better, they could be a fascinating team at the deadline too. 59 days, by the way, until the deadline.
I love it. The only person more excited right now than you, Jim, is Mike Elias, because he's like, more prospects. I can get more prospects. And that way I don't have to sign anybody. I can just get more prospects and keep them until their time has passed, and then I'll have more prospects.
Yeah, his job's on the line, though, AJ. He's got to rebuild this thing quick. I mean, that's the way I view it. I mean, he has to have a good deadline. He has to put his team in good position. He makes some good trades at this deadline, and you go to free agency and sign a couple of really good starters that are out there. He can fix this thing quickly, but I think his job's on the line.
Jarren Duran, San Diego Padres interest. Did you see Dennis Lin's report, and what do you make of it from both sides? Of course, the Padres could use someone like that. I mean, they have a hole at left field and maybe DH, but doesn't that mean the Red Sox are kind of punting, or does it open up a place for Roman Anthony to have a discussion that's worth having with them?
Yeah, so for the Padres, of course, A.J. Preller is going to make that phone call, right? Outfield at Tatis in right, Maryland center, and Duran in left. That power speed combination. Duran was an all-star last year. That's a really good outfield, and it's a huge hole that he's got after Profar left last year in free agency. He hasn't been able to really fill it. So of course he's going to make that phone call. Now for the Red Sox, the whole thing has been perplexing because one of their top 2 or 3 players in the organization, Roman Anthony's in AAA, and they're not promoting him. And at the same time, they had no interest in moving Anthony to first or Abreu to first or Duran to first, right? So they've kind of made the decision that he's blocked. You can't bring him up to DH because you have Devers. So in order to make room for Anthony, you either got to move Rafaela to second, put Duran in center and Anthony in left, or you got to trade one of the outfield corners. And so I'm not quite completely understanding what Craig Breslow is going to do, but the Duran rumors kind of opens up that possibility that he is thinking of trading Duran, bringing Anthony up and going with Anthony, Rafaela, and Abreu as the outfield. They love Rafaela defensively, and they should. He's an elite defensive center fielder with great range, great speed. He's incredible. I don't know how much he's going to hit. He certainly has, good raw power. I don't know how much the hit tool is going to play. But that's the only thing I can think of. Devers isn't going to move off of DH, so that's kind of where they stand. So trading Duran makes sense. Now, the problem with the rumor is there's really not a fit between the Padres and the Red Sox. I can't find, they really don't have the starting pitcher to trade Boston. Their farm system isn't what it once was. So I don't know how those two teams would match. So I think it's unlikely there's a trade there, but it would not surprise me at all if Craig Breslow, the GM of the Red Sox, plan is to trade Duran, because otherwise, why haven't you made room for Anthony? It just doesn't make sense.
Scott, you need to check out this Roback hoodie I have. It's 85 plus degrees here in Florida. Look, lightweight, feels great, cool colors, perfect for those hot Florida days.
I agree, AJ. Color looks fire. And you can get your own sweatshirt, polo, hoodie. Go check out Roback. And if you do and you're a first-time customer, Roback.com using the code FOUL gets you 20% off your first purchase. RHOBACK.com, code FOUL. Get after it, FT fam.
Speaking of prospects, there's a big one coming for Kansas City. So I'm going to ask you this question, Jim, as a former GM. Is it easier to find pitching help in the draft or guys that can possibly hit you 40 homers?
So let me answer it this way. When you draft a pitcher in that first round, and Jac Caglianone was the 6th player taken in the first round, Billy Beane, the former president GM of the A's, really said it simply before the algorithms all came out, but he said it simply. For every pitcher you get, one is going to live up to expectations, one is going to blow out, and one is going to regress. Those aren't good odds with your first round pick. But if you take in the first round a guy that can hit big league pitching and has power, that guy's going to play, and he's going to play for years to come. So when you're talking about the first round pick, if there's a choice between a pitcher or a hitter and they're similar talents, you take the hitter because of the risk factor. Now, if there's a Paul Skeens or Steven Strasburg there, obviously you do that. But yeah, look, I think without a doubt, this kid, Jac Caglianone, he's Matt Olson. That's what he is. I mean, he's got 35, 40 home run power. And the thing that's great about him is how much plate coverage he gets, because you look at some of the analytics and people will complain, well, he chases out of the strike zone. You know what he does out of the strike zone? He mashes out of the strike zone. Because of his frame and his long levers, he can actually do damage outside, on the outside corner, on the inside corner. I mean, it's unbelievable. And by the way, he uses the entire field. He's foul pole to foul pole. This isn't just a young pull hitter. So again, he's Olsen. I don't know. I think he's going to have some trouble on balls up in the strike zone, but he's a star. Look, he's only played 14 games in the outfield, 12 in right and a couple games in left field. But yeah, he's going to be a star.
All right. So my question is how does he fall to 6th? I went into last year saying he should be 1-1 because of just the raw power. Now, Bazana is fine. I know that's at Cleveland. We can sign him for probably less deal. But I look at like Charlie Condon. I know he had one big year at Georgia, and he jumped in the conversation. But Nick Kurtz is already in the big leagues, and he's producing before he got hurt. But my question is really like the reason I asked the question is I'm a White Sox fan, right? And they drafted Hagen Smith, the pick before Caglianone. What can't the White Sox do? They can't hit. So why would you not draft the guy, especially in that ballpark and in that division? Like, you got to hit. Like, that's why I want to know, is it easier to develop a pitcher or a hitter, or to find a pitcher and hitter? Because the White Sox, they're supposed to have, Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz and all these pitchers coming. But you look at them and they've had a really hard time developing anybody that can hit worth a crap. Right? So why would you not take the guy that hit 40 homers every year in the SEC against Hagen Smith and some of these other guys? That was the only reason I asked the question. And the way you answered it made total sense. But to me, it's like, how do you pass on Caglianone for anybody when you can't hit?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I think the hardest thing to do in baseball is hit big league pitching, hit major league pitching at 98 miles an hour with these unbelievable vertical and horizontal breaks and all the differential and speed changes. And I mean, in sports, is there anything harder to do than hitting a baseball? And when you get those guys that can hit, that's where I'm going. I'm taking the hitters every single time. I learned by failure. And the other thing that I will say, though, is, look, it's not a perfect science either. Look at the year Jacob Wilson is having with Oakland. Or I should say the Athletics, I'm sorry, West Sacramento Athletics. But the season he's having at the plate, that has been unbelievable. And there were a lot of really good hitters that were taken before him in that particular draft. So it's not, a perfect science. To answer your question, I would have taken Caglianone, without a doubt. I would have taken Kurtz. I mean, I would take a hitter there. The only time that I change is if the guy is a generational ace, because that's the hardest thing to get in baseball, because it's either costing $300 million in free agency, because you can't even trade your farm system really to get that guy. So if Skeens and Strasburg are there, I'm doing that. Otherwise, I'm taking the Mark Teixeira, I'm taking the Joe Mauer, and it's the hit tool first, and the power follows, and Caglianone has both.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.